The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the K-Thurx ambassador entered. Her crystalline exoskeleton refracted the sterile lighting into prismatic patterns across the obsidian walls, and her 6 limbs moved with the deliberate grace of something that had existed for millennia. Behind her compound eyes lay an intelligence that predated most civilizations in the known galaxy. Elsa watched from the observation deck, her fingers pressed against the transparent aluminum barrier. She wasn't supposed to be here. As a waste reclamation technician on Station Unity, her clearance level barely allowed her access to the maintenance corridors, let alone the Council's diplomatic chambers. But David had smuggled her in, insisting she needed to see this. "They've been trying to communicate with her for 3 standard weeks," David whispered, his dark eyes reflecting the holographic displays floating between them. He was a data analyst, mid-level enough to have legitimate access, but low enough that nobody paid him much attention. 17 different species, the galaxy's best xenolinguists, AI translation matrices running calculations that would melt your brain. Nothing works. The K-Thurx ambassador stood motionless at the chamber's center. The council representatives, Vrelians with their methane-breathing apparatus, the hive-minded chorus whose bodies rippled with bioluminescent communication, even the enigmatic architects whose very thoughts could reshape matter on quantum levels, all watched in frustrated silence. Elsa leaned forward, her breath fogging the barrier. Something stirred in her memory, something from the slums of New Karachi where she'd grown up, before the recruitment ships came, before she'd traded Earth's overcrowded poverty for the sterile poverty of space station maintenance work. The K-Thurx made a sound. It wasn't speech in any conventional sense. It was a harmonic resonance that made the chamber's walls hum, a frequency that bypassed the ear entirely and vibrated directly through bone and sinew. The translation matrices flickered uselessly, unable to process input that existed partially outside conventional spacetime. "That's not language," Elsa said suddenly. "It's music." David turned to her, eyebrows raised. "What?" "In the slums, we had these old data cores, salvaged from the first colony ships. My grandmother used to play recordings, ancient Earth classical music, mostly corrupted, but some tracks survived." Elsa's eyes were distant, remembering. There was this piece, Messiaen's Quartet for the End of Time. He used modes of limited transposition, symmetrical scales that exist outside traditional Western tonality. That's what she's doing. She's not speaking, she's composing in a musical language. The K-Thurx made another sound, this one ascending in pitch with mathematical precision. The Fibonacci sequence, Elsa realized. Each harmonic interval related to the next in the golden ratio. "I need to get down there," Elsa said. "You're insane," security would. "David, please, I understand her." He looked at her for a long moment, then his fingers danced across his datapad. "You've got 3 minutes before the security algorithms notice the access override. Make them count." Elsa ran. Through the observation corridor, down the emergency stairs, past startled guards whose authorization suddenly showed her clearance as diplomatic auxiliary, David's digital forgery buying her precious seconds. She burst into the council chamber just as alarms began to wail. The K-Thurx's head swiveled toward her with unsettling speed. Those ancient compound eyes fixed on Elsa, and for a moment, the human woman felt the weight of eons pressing down on her consciousness. Elsa opened her mouth and sang. Not words, not any language the council would recognize. She sang the modal patterns her grandmother had taught her, the ragas and makams that existed in the spaces between Western scales, the microtonal intervals that most species had engineered out of their music in favor of mathematical precision. She sang the sorrow of humanity's overcrowded homeworld, the desperate hope that had driven them to the stars, the strange loneliness of being the galaxy's newest and poorest species. The K-Thurx responded immediately. Her harmonics shifted, modulated, creating overtones that Elsa felt in her chest cavity. They were communicating, not with words but with emotional resonances encoded in sound, a language that existed before conventional linguistics, before species developed the arbitrary symbols that other aliens called speech. Elsa understood. The K-Thorax weren't diplomats in the traditional sense. They were historians, memory keepers of a civilization so ancient that conventional language had become meaningless to them. They communicated in pure emotional and mathematical truth, expressed through sound. And they had come with a warning. Elsa's voice cracked as she translated the meaning into crude verbal language for the council. She says the great filters are coming, astronomical events that have destroyed countless civilizations. The K-Thorax survived because they learned to exist partially outside normal spacetime, but younger species, all of us, we're vulnerable. The K-Thorax's harmonics deepened, resonating with urgency. She came to teach us, not technology, something deeper, how to perceive reality through multiple dimensional frameworks simultaneously, how to make ourselves resilient. Elsa's voice wavered. But she can only teach those who still remember how to hear truth without words. Species that have grown too dependent on linguistic precision have lost the capacity. The council representatives erupted in consternation, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of sound, light, and pheromones. But the K-Thorax remained focused on Elsa. One final harmonic, questioning and gentle. Elsa smiled through sudden tears. "Yes," she said softly, "humanity remembers. We're poor and we're new and we're desperate, but we still have music. We still have the languages that exist in between." Security arrived then, but it didn't matter. The K-Thorax had found what she was looking for, a species young and unrefined enough to still possess linguistic flexibility, to still remember that truth could be communicated in ways that transcended mere information exchange. As they led Elsa away, she heard David's voice over the security channel. "Worth it." She looked back at the K-Thorax, who raised one crystalline limb in what might have been a gesture of respect or farewell. "Yeah," Elsa whispered, "worth it." The galaxy would learn to listen, she thought, and humanity, poor and overlooked, would teach them how.